All right, so number 15 is another type 1 and type 2 error problem. This one's a little tricky, and it's asking which of these statements are false concerning type 1 and type 2 errors. The first statement is that type 1 error is always worse than a type 2 error. So let's go look at that. Let's go back to the notes we had for number 12 and look at that. So remember, a type 1 error means you rejected the null and it's actually true. So you found convincing evidence, you proved HA, but you were wrong. So you found evidence to find a defendant guilty, but he was not guilty. So in that situation, we sent an innocent man to prison. And a type 2 error would have meant that we sent a guilty man because we failed to find evidence, but he was actually guilty. We were wrong. We let a guilty man go free. If you know anything about the law, you would know that type 1 error is considered a worse one in this situation. But type 1 and type 2 errors vary by situation. Sometimes the type 2 error is worse. Like, think about the false positive and false negative in these situations. A false positive means that you tested positive for COVID, but the test is wrong, you don't actually have COVID. So what would happen? You would take precautions, but you don't actually have it. But that's not that bad, really. I mean, you took some precautions, you had to take a test and everything, but it's not that big a deal. So in that situation, a type 1's not bad at all, but the type 2 is bad. Because think about it, you tested negative for COVID, but the test is wrong, you actually have COVID, so you'll go home and you'll spread it to everybody. You might even go to an event or something and spread it. So in that situation, a type 2 is worse. So in the court case, the type 1 was worse. In that COVID situation, the type 2 was worse. So the correct answer on that one would be that is false. So this one is false. A type 1 error is always worse than a type 2. That's not always true. It can go either direction. Sometimes a type 2 is worse, sometimes a type 1 is worse. So let's look at the other two. A type 1 error incorrectly rejects a true alternative hypothesis, which means they failed to reject the null. They incorrectly reject a true one. So they incorrectly reject a true alternative hypothesis, which means they incorrectly failed to reject it. So let's think about which one would that be? Because it's got to be one of the two, right? So it's an either or, so one of these is false. So incorrectly rejecting a true alternative hypothesis means we should have proven it, but we didn't. And which error does that? Which error is the one where we should have proven it, but we didn't? It's the type 2 error. We should have proven our HA, but we didn't. So that would be, the type 2 error should be correct on here, and the type 1 error would be wrong. So the correct answers would be 1 and 3 on this one. So yeah, this problem is a little awkward. This is weird wording on this, and it probably won't be, it'll be more straightforward on the final, but this was a tricky problem. But though, yeah, those would be your two answers on this one.